Hey y'all, hope this past month has been good and spooky for you all. Yeah, the October video I wanted to make didn't quite pan out, but November seemed as good of a month as any. Also, holy crap, how is it already November? Time is the spookiest creature of all, it seems. Anyway, let's move on to what you're here for. This month's latest batch of notable tracks and singles from October 2023. Starting off with an artist I've been quietly following in the singles leading up to his latest album. Slauson Malone's Excelsior is, well, it's a unique record for sure. A little bit R&B, a little bit psychedelic rock, a backbone of freeform jazz, and some more experimental synthesizer pieces just to keep things interesting. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it, and I'm more than a little fascinated at the mere fact of it simply existing. My music brain does tend to naturally gravitate toward the more conventionally structured tunes though, and Half-Life is one of the strongest of them all. Forget every descriptor I just mentioned for this one, because this actually lies more in the vein of post-punk, with the pervading tension that lies amidst the spare guitars, winding strings, flickers of synths, and Malone's own smooth cascade of a voice. I'm just mesmerized by this one. It's a collection of spare pieces that feel like they shouldn't work together, yet create something so undeniably groovy. I'll say that this definitely works better in the context of the album as a whole. If the sound of this sounds interesting to you as all, there are 17 other tracks that are absolutely vying for your attention. Just can't deny the subtly slick personality of this one. It's a bop. Now this artist is really interesting. He first started releasing music under the Haxan Cloak moniker back in the early 10s, but has since branched away from this project, instead releasing a number of high-profile video game soundtracks under his real name, Bobby Kurlick. Even still, I actually know him best for his scores for director Ari Aster's films Midsummer and Beau is Afraid. But I digress, as he's now released his first track as a Haxan Cloak in about a decade, and, well, here it is. Now, I must say that I'm not usually a huge fan of this kind of noisy, deconstructed club music without a trace of melody or pop inflection. Nonetheless, I also just simply enjoy good music. I don't know what to tell y'all. The jagged corners of its beat are incredibly enticing, as are the isolated moments of industrial bangs and whirs that fill up its soundscape with escalating intensity. And it's never dry or repetitive either. Once a particular motif has run its course, another slots perfectly in to fill its place, and it's all so damn hypnotizing. One of the most weirdly catchy tracks I've heard recently for sure. I don't believe Kurlick has given word of another Haxan Cloak release, at least not yet, but best believe I'm craving more of this sound. And if this turns out to be just a one-off experiment he wanted to share with the world, well, thanks a lot. At last, the time has come. The time for new Glass Beach material, that is, as this is the first proper inklings of their upcoming highly anticipated second album. Now, as I've said before, this band is one of the most exciting acts I've had the pleasure of discovering recently. The quirky, colorful style of the first Glass Beach album juxtaposes with the lush sentimentality of its subject matter in such spectacular ways. It's just beautiful. But with the CIA... well, it's less colorful at its face, kind of flat and single-toned actually, and the material is less intimate and more opaque. Its sentiment's not nearly as immediate as I'm used to hearing from them, instead shrouded in metaphor that blunts its emotional thrust. It's mildly disappointing, but mostly just not what I was anticipating in all honesty. But so much of this hardly matters, because what's really got me excited is all encapsulated in the final third of this track. Spare jagged chords that quickly progress to one hell of a propulsive, absolutely explosive rhythm. The interplay between the guitar and synths are incredibly fun here, and the song overall could have fully benefited from more of this energy. Regardless, if this gives any indication of what direction their sound is to take with this next album, well, I'm totally on board, fully anticipating what else they've got up their sleeve. Now, here's the thing. I do try my very best to reserve the spots in these roundups to artists that aren't literal chart toppers in this very year, but, well, does PinkPantheress really count? Even with as intensely hard as it is for new artists to break through and stay relevant in the mainstream these days, she seems to be playing by her own rules entirely. Simply put, she's always felt too cool for regular old pop music listeners. But I digress. I'm here to talk about Capable of Love, which feels so much like the best song she's put out so far. Like, this just sounds so good. Delicate chords layered atop danceable percussion instrument and a soft hazy drone undercutting it all, proving the perfect atmosphere for the singers lamenting over her complicated, shaky love dynamic. And I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating, but this certainly feels like one of the best choruses of the year. It must be. I've mentally paired PinkPantheress with Hemlock Springs in my mind. Just like Springs, I could truly see her revolutionizing the music scene with some time and ever-blooming experience. And it's songs like these that give me that hunch. Also, you'll hear my thoughts on Boys a Liar Part 2 soon enough. Don't worry.
Deep as the ocean, shameless, outspoken, aimless, unfocused, and lost in life's motions.
I never got to talk about Maruja back when their debut EP dropped last March, but best believe that they've been one of the most immediately compelling bands I've discovered this year. They'd initially come off to me as more of a post-rock band with some post-punk leanings, and while I'm not certain if One Hand Behind the Devil is a lead into any further big projects, the change in direction is certainly compelling. The sound is certainly more frantic and wild, threaded by a deep hollow guitar motif. I can't help but connect to The Cure, specifically their 17 Seconds era. And big props to the evangelist-like delivery of this vocalist, which further instills this intensity that make the sound all that more compelling. Maybe this is an overused comparison, but I definitely feel a flicker of the enrapturing power I've sensed from Black Country New Road in their early days, particularly in that prolonged saxophone solo. But with the post-hardcore edge inherent to the band, this is raw, or at least it feels that way. All in all, this is really sharp. This band never fails to impress me, and I can't wait to see what else from the group this could potentially lead toward. So, the dance punk revival is underway, right? I mean, the Yard Act release from a couple months ago certainly got me excited, and now pop punk band IDLES has kicked off their next album cycle with a song featuring the literal LCD Soundsystem. Things are happening, friends, and I couldn't be more excited. But okay, here's the song at hand. First things first, the guitars here are fantastic, especially during the verses where the tone is so deep and menacing. It's the extra bit of melodrama that keeps us from landing squarely in shallow, forgettable territory, which, yeah, this is a bit shallow. If you're deeply invested in the pop-punk sound that IDLES have cultivated over the years, it's not unlikely you'll be disappointed with this one. And from what I've read, the band has taken a shift in sound and content in general with this upcoming album, so there's that. I appreciate the experimentation though. If nothing else, it'll be interesting. In all, this is probably one of the most predictable songs for me to immediately grow fond of, but damn it, this makes me dance, and I just can't ignore that.
And on trial, but still, it's ace. Top.
Oh. Yeah, speaking of Yard Act, looks like they got a new single out as well. Once again, dance punk revival is real. Anyway, yeah, after the Trenchcoat Museum left me pleasantly surprised and intrigued over the rest of this album rollout, this one also did not disappoint. If the IDLES track has left you feeling a bit lukewarm, I'll suggest taking a stab at this particular flavor of dance punk. In place of that track's heavier thuds and standard punk leanings, this one is looser, tropical, certainly more colorful, taking a number of interesting directions through its runtime. It takes things a lot further back, and sounds not unlike something Talking Heads would have put out back in the day. But of course, the best dance tracks always have the slightest tinges of cynicism, and this one highlights its liberating atmosphere with glimmers of uncertainty about the future, even paranoia over this very uncertainty, further demonstrating that nothing is ever as loose and easy as it seems, and boy ain't that the truth. So looking forward to this record, I can't even tell y'all.
Hold it one more time.
So I've only recently heard of Quannnic, them being yet another artist to pull out of the wide, hazy world of contemporary emo and shoegaze. There are a lot of bands in these corners that I've tried to keep up with to varying degrees of success. It's hard, there's too much music. But anyway, I might actually be sticking with this artist for the long run, as I can confidently say that this is the best release of this rollout. The guitars are as blown and impenetrable as it goes with shoegaze, but the melodic drive is, frankly, pretty incredible. A delicate haze at the verses that escalates to a blissful, bittersweet soar at the chorus. Stuff like this is exactly what had drawn me to shoegaze all those years ago. It simply scratches that particular itch so well, and is an instant earworm at that. I'll admit that Quannnic has underwhelmed me in the past, but like I said before, this is the best taste of the album we've got so far, and I'll certainly be jumping on board once that becomes a thing. Jesus, what the hell was in the water this month that's got these artists dropping bangers left and right? Alright, so Everything is a band I've been familiar with for quite a while. Their 2015 album Get to Heaven is a terrific slice of indie pop, and even more explicitly dance-centric raw data feel from last year was quite the gem. With Cold Reactor, it sounds like this band is taking on pure nostalgic new wave this time, which, yeah, sign me up. Anyway, this is catchy as sin. I don't know how else to describe it. Okay, well here's this. As someone who's recently highly fixated on the indie music of the 2000s, believe me when I say that this has a fixing of the aughts era music all over it. Like, this straight up sounds like something the Killers would have put out in their Hot Fuss or Sam's Town eras. And that's really cool. It's like a return to a form and feel that had been left in the dust for a while. But despite all this, I don't know, man, these guys are no strangers to great melodies at all, so it makes sense. Nonetheless, I'm utterly transfixed. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit, but this feels like best list fodder if I ever heard it. Now, let's see if these good feels follow me all the way to January. I'm feeling optimistic. And that's all, folks. A pretty cool diverse month, all things considered. Anyway, list season awaits, so time for me to shift my gears in that direction. Take care, don't ask me about the Sufjan Stevens album, and I'll see you next time.